For the final question in this class, we were asked, in the United States, incarceration has risen even when crime rates have fallen. Based on what you've learned in this class, how do you explain this fact and suggest a solution to it? After taking this class, and based on what I've learned, I came up with three main explanations for this phenomenon. The first revolves around get tough laws and repeat offender legislations. Repeat offender legislation, otherwise known as three strike laws, lock up habitual offenders. When locking up the people who repeatedly commit crimes, that will decrease your crime rate because they're not on the street to commit the crimes anymore, but it will also increase the incarceration rate because someone is being sent to prison. Also, these generally carry harsher sentences than just your normal one and done. So that means these criminals will be incarcerated longer, which will reduce the recidivism rate since they're not on the street to commit more crimes. When Get Tough legislations were first enacted in the late 1900s, crime was dropping everywhere on its own, but the Get Tough laws still were increasing incarceration rates because in the places that they were enacted, more people were being sent to prison than in places where they weren't. Recently, in the article we had to read for the discussion board, Jeff Sessions was trying to implement a policy that would require minimum sentencing for prosecutors to use whenever they were prosecuting someone for a crime. If such a policy was in place, then that would increase crime rate or incarceration rates as well because even smaller crimes would be giving the sentences. Another development that I think fits in this category better than my other two is the criminology of place. This seems to be a more recent development. There was a study in 2004 showing evidence that it works, but the study showed that in Minneapolis, 3% of locations were responsible for 50% of calls to police. So, better tactics to police the areas that are higher in crime rates will reduce crime and then increase the incarceration because those people are being incarcerated in those specific locations. Overall, these ideas grouped together, I think, reflects the classical school of criminology and the rational choice theory because one thing that this theory focuses on is deterrence, and with these increased incarceration rates from these different ideas that will be able to dissuade people from committing crimes because they're seeing so many more people locked up. The criminology of place especially makes the costs outweigh the benefits, so that will deter crime a lot more as well. The next explanation that I had for why these trends could be happening is the effects of the war on drugs. The war on drugs has high rates of incarcerations for offenses. A lot of small crimes are sending people to jails and prisons. And while that does lead to overcrowding in prisons, one effect that it could be having is that it reduces drug related crimes, such as drug addicts are locked up instead of being able to steal or rob somebody for a way to get their fix. So with the those with drug addictions being locked up, they won't commit more crimes in order to support their addiction. Another idea I think that helps explain this is technology in crime, because in recent years, technology's advanced a lot farther than what it was in most of history before it. So that benefits both the law enforcement agencies as well as the criminals. It aids law enforcement agencies because they're better able to predict and prevent crime. I also mentioned research in this section more than just technology. So what I mean by that is just including criminological research, that we've advanced as a field enough that law enforcement agencies are able to predict crime. And then with being able to predict crime better, they can prevent it, so that would lower the crime rates. And then if they are able to better catch people in the act, then that would lead to higher incarceration rates. And on the flip side of that, crime is evolving as well, and with the recent development of cybercrime, the crimes that are being committed today may simply not be defined yet. And crime is a violation of statute. So if the statutes don't exist, then what could be criminal tomorrow isn't yet today. Another thing that I think could be happening here is that criminals are being sneakier with their crimes, or it's happening in a way that we aren't fully prepared to combat yet. So that being said, the crimes could be happening, but we aren't able to record it because we aren't aware of it. So the three explanations that I had for why crime rates are falling but incarceration rates are rising are the combination of get tough laws and habitual offender legislations, the war on drugs, and then the advancements in technology and research revolving crime. So, for what I believe could be a solution to this problem, this is also broken up into three sections. The first I have is change the punishments for drug offenses. While I don't disagree that drug offenses should be criminalized, the way we're treating them in the criminal justice system with imprisonment is not the answer. A better solution to avoid overcrowding would likely be better rehab for the offenders. This would not only help them and cure their addictions, but it would reduce criminal activity because they wouldn't be having to commit other crimes in order to fund their addictions, and it would reduce the overcrowding in prisons. That is a significant issue due to the drug crimes. My next solution was to loosen the Get Tough Laws legislation because, as the book said, there were areas that didn't apply Get Tough Laws and there were areas that did, and crime dropped overall together whether the Get Tough Laws were in effect or not. So that means they have little impact on the rates of crime. All they do is increase incarceration rates. So if we loosen these, then we will also reduce the incarceration rates. And my final solution is, instead of just trying to lock people up, or if we do incarcerate the offenders, there needs to be better programs in the prison, because that is an issue that our system has today. One thing that I think would be incredibly beneficial is help those with low socioeconomic statuses build skills to where they can get a job either before, like instead of sending them to prison, or after they're out, because if they have skills to where they will better be able to provide for themselves, then they won't have to worry as much about fitting into society and being functioning. So that will reduce the strain that they feel and make their lives a lot easier so they aren't turned to crime. And there would better programs would also help to reduce recidivism, which would lower both crime rates and incarceration, because people wouldn't be committing crimes as much after they were released from prison. So I think the combinations of these three solutions will help reduce the incarceration rates to match the falling crime rates that we are seeing in the United States today. While I'm not a criminologist myself, these may not be the best solutions, but based on what I learned in this class, the three explanations I presented with the Get Tough and Repeat Offender legislations, the war on drugs, and then advancing technology and research seem to be the three largest causes for this trend. So finding ways to react to those explanations, I think, would help a lot to reduce the incarceration rate that is overpopulated.